Do you know there is a drug so potent that just a speck can bring relief to someone in unimaginable pain or tragically push someone past the brink of overdose? Yes, this is fentanyl, a synthetic opioid that's been a game changer in medicine for over 50 years. In today's episode, we'll discuss what does fentanyl do to your body. So, let's get started. What is fentanyl? Fentanyl is a potent synthetic opioid that is about 100 times stronger than morphine or around 50 times stronger than heroin. Logically, the difference between a dose and an overdose is very small. As a result, illicit fentanyl consumers say that it is challenging to differentiate between proper dosing. What are the other names for fentanyl? It is also known as Goodfella, Jackpot, Murder 8, TNT, Tango and Cash, Fetty, Fent, Fentanyl, Sublimaze, Actic, Duragesic, and Duragesic. Illegally made fentanyl is not prevalent in Australia and is observed more in North American drug markets. It is sometimes marketed as other substances and has been linked to higher fatality due to overdose. This is recommended for instances such as chronic pain, severe cancer pain, neurological pathology, back pain, major trauma, and surgery. However, when taken according to the prescription by a doctor, fentanyl is safe and efficient. The fourth wave of the opioid crisis. Do you know the opioid crisis in the United States is now in its fourth wave? Wave 1, the 1990s to early 2000s. Medical companies released new opioids for treating pain, and consequently prescribable opioids were prescribed. These drugs were recommended by the physicians, including back pains, without observing their features of addiction. Wave 2. 2010 onwards. Heroin was used by many people who got hooked on prescription opioids when prescriptions were no longer available. Heroin overdose rates surged. Wave 3. New synthetic opioids such as fentanyl brought a sharp increase in death from overdose. Wave 4. People are passing on in their thousands without knowing that what they are using contains fentanyl. A real-life example was recorded in 2022 when a group of teenagers was expecting to purchase Percocet, which is a relatively mild prescription opioid. The pills contained fentanyl, a young girl died of an overdose in a high school lavatory, and 2 more young people were found unconscious in a park nearby. This scenario has recurred throughout the United States and to some extent in Europe. How is fentanyl used? Pharmaceutical fentanyl can be taken in many different ways, including via nose, mouth, injection, and skin. Though today there are gels developed to apply for fentanyl skin exposure, some forms can't be used this way, and you won't feel the impact or death by overdose. The illegally made fentanyl can be ingested, administered through a shot, inhaled through smoking, or nasal inhalation. So are there any effects of fentanyl? The use of any drug can have risks. It's important to be careful when taking any type of drug. Fentanyl affects everyone differently based on their size, weight, xerania health, whether the person is used to taking it, whether other drugs are taken around the same time, the amount taken, and the strength of the drug. And injecting? If injecting drugs, there is an increased risk of tetanus, infection, and vein damage. Smoking versus injecting. Fentanyl's use has shifted over time, with smoking becoming more common than injecting. While smoking might seem safer, it's dangerously deceptive. It is less efficient to control this way, and the risk of an overdose becomes even higher. Notably, a number of investigations reveal that opioid injection fentanyl users have a higher risk of 40% in overdose fatalities than people who smoke the substance. Smoking has now surpassed injecting as the #1 cause of drug-related deaths in the US, a constant reminder of how deadly this drug is, regardless of the way that it is ingested. Overdose. Let me picture a substance so powerful that even a slight miscalculation can turn life-threatening. If the dose is too high, or if fentanyl enters furtively under the guise of another substance, an overdose can strike and it's deadly serious, slow or hollow breathing, bluish lips, gassing out, coma, or death. Fentanyl-related overdose deaths were slightly under 75,000 in last year. However, the risks associated with opioids are well known, and still, society cannot resist taking opioids because they can produce a feeling of elation. Long-term use of fentanyl carries its burdens such as dependence, less effective pain relief, increased risk of getting sick from viruses and infections, xernia, sleep problems, reduced bone density and higher risk of breaking bones, and impacts on hormone levels leading to reduced sex drive, infertility, logically to dysfunction or menstrual cycle changes. The zombie drug, xylazine, swing, also known as the tranq or the zombie drug, is an evil new sedative on the market. Initially used as a veterinary anesthetic sedative, xylazine is currently being combined with fentanyl to make the new variant more lethal. Subjects often behave like zombies that the user can sit or lie drooped with flabbily relaxed limbs. The economics of synthetic drugs. The drug business as it is today is highly influenced by the new innovations of synthetic drugs such as fentanyl. In contrast, the production of heroin takes months of intensive work in opium fields, while fentanyl can be produced in a few hours from chemicals available in the agricultural and pharmaceutical industries. This efficiency has led to the prices being reduced. The retail price for fentanyl pills ranges between 50 cents and $5 per pill depending on the area. For the powdered fentanyl, it is sold at $5 to $25 for 0.1 grams, which is cheaper compared to heroin. This has made fentanyl easily available and has contributed to addiction and overdoses in addition to hampering efforts by law enforcement agencies. Fentanyl and mental health. The use of illicit opioids usually leads to mental illnesses in people at some point in their lifetime. This does not imply that opioids in some manner elicited mental health issues. To some people, fentanyl is prescribed for treating symptoms of mental health disorders. Some side effects of long-term use of fentanyl include people getting mental health problems. More than 50% of illicit opioid users report having had one or several mental disorder symptoms in their lifetime. The most frequent diagnosis is depressive and anxiety disorders. Over 40% of illicit opioid users experience PTSD. Persistent childhood trauma is reported to range between 30% and 50%. Swing among those who use illicit opioids. Reducing harm. If you are using a fentanyl swing, ensure that you strictly follow the doctor's instructions and never alter the dosage on your own. Use of fentanyl together with other opioids or depressants puts one at risk of overdosing, therefore avoid it. Carry naloxone and encourage loved ones to do the same. It can save a life in an emergency. Never drive or operate machinery after using a fentanyl. Store them properly out of the reach of children and avoid exposing them to high or low temperatures. Finally, remove used patches properly. When injecting component placement, one must make sure to use clean and sterile needles at all times. Fentanyl could be present in other drugs like cocaine, MDMA, Zrenia, etc. Be tender-hearted, begin with a low dose, and look for any drug alerts or testing services. The never-ending war on drugs. The fentanyl crisis reached its peak in 2023. The DEA found 80 million fake pills containing fentanyl and 12,000 pounds of fentanyl powder, enough to end every life in America. Still, the crisis does not subside even with such grand initiatives and measures. Why? Fentanyl analogs can quickly be synthesized. People are still craving opioids, and the ingenuity of drug cartels does not seem to have an off switch. Tackling it requires more than enforcement. It demands fresh strategies and unwavering resolve to outpace this deadly threat. The synthetic opioid crisis continues to devastate communities across the globe, with no end in sight. Addressing this challenge will require systemic changes and international cooperation to mitigate the destruction caused by these deadly substances. So, what do you believe is the most effective solution to combat the fentanyl epidemic? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Stay tuned.